nice, warm welcome. Good morning and welcome to People Are Talking.
Well, this morning we're going to take a look at one of the biggest threats to you and your family in the 1990s. And that threat is drugs. The powerful images are everywhere, but few as dramatic as this.
My ears ring.
Yeah, how does it feel right now?
Sort of terrible, sort of good. All crack does is make you look like me. Seriously. Somebody will say, oh, I never look like that. I'll never, but you will. Sooner or later, you will look like me.
Many of us look at that and say, well, that could never happen to me. Our guests this morning are experts in the world of drugs. Among them, the anchor and managing editor of CBS News, Mr. Dan Rather. Good morning, Dan.
Good
Welcome
morning.
to San Francisco.
Glad to be here. Thank you very much.
The clip we just saw was from your special Return to Crack Street. You've seen it as an investigative journalist, up close, firsthand. In your opinion, how severe is the drug problem in this country as we go into the 1990s? And should parents fear for their children's lives?
Drugs are the greatest internal threat to our country since slavery in the 19th century. It's getting worse, not better. Two very important things for parents to know on the basis of my reporting experience and spending time with people such as Bob Setman, who's here this morning. You cannot start too early in educating your children and giving your children a lot of love, a lot of direction, goal orientation, and a lot of praise.
As Dan mentioned, Robert Stutman is with us, former agent in charge of the DEA in New York City. Can you give us a brief education, Bob, on what these drugs are, ice and ecstasy, and what they do to our kids?
Well, the first thing we've got to remember is that with 5% of the world's population in the United States of America, we consume almost 60% of the illicit drug production in the entire world. I think that gives you a broad scope as to where we are. As Dan mentioned, one thing we should also not forget is the average age of first drug use in the United States is 12 and a half. And the drugs that these kids are using are obviously cocaine, crack, grass, which is not the grass that you and I used back in the 60s and 70s. It's about 10 to 20 times as strong as it was in the 60s and 70s. And even if we replaced all of those drugs tomorrow, if we did away with them, by the next week, we would have drugs like dextromethamphetamine, which is ice in smokable form, or we'd have ecstasy, or we'd have lots of other drugs to take the place of what we eliminated.
All right, you talk about ice.
Yep.
One hit of ice. How's it taken, first of all?
You smoke it.
You smoke it.
The most efficient method of taking any drug is to smoke it, actually more efficient than IV injection.
What does it do to a kid?
In double-blind tests with crack users where they were allowed in laboratory conditions to smoke ice and smoke crack, the crack users could absolutely not tell the difference. It is basically the same effect as crack, except the crack high lasts 10 to 15 minutes, and the ice high may last up to 15 hours.
There was an article in the paper this morning, Bob, that said perhaps after a UC study, kids who occasionally experiment with marijuana, maybe other drugs, may be better off than children who abstain altogether. Yeah. There are parents who have read this all over the Bay Area saying, oh my God, what does this mean, that my child has to experiment with drugs?
Yeah. I saw that study, and there are a couple of things to be very wary of that. Number one, the data in that study was talking about kids who used drugs 15 years ago. The drugs that those kids were using 15 years ago are not the drugs they're experimenting with today. Today they're experimenting with grass that is, again, 10 to 20 times stronger than those kids were, and number two, cocaine. And what we certainly know about cocaine, and especially crack, it is the most addicting substance that's available today in the United States. The best summary I ever had of how bad cocaine is came from a dear friend of mine who is a treatment expert in the world, I think a fellow named Dr. Arnold Washington, who said to a group of us one day, if you have a 16-year-old daughter and your daughter has to use heroin or cocaine for 1 month, pray she uses heroin. That's how difficult this drug is to deal with, and that's the drug our kids are experimenting with, and you can't play with that stuff.
Now, you believe that drug education should start in kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade.
There is
Just as Dan said.
Absolutely. Dan and I are absolutely together on that.
So you're never too young to find out about drugs. Is that what you're saying?
I think the family has an obligation to start before kindergarten, 2 or 3, but the school system has to start the day those kids hit
But
school.
a lot of people may be of the thought that it's like sex education. If you talk about it, they're going to go out and do it if they find out.
I never saw anybody that died from too much knowledge.
Dr. Mimi Silbert, president.
Well done. Well done.
Dr. Mimi Silbert is president of the Delancey Street Foundation. You not only talk about this every day, you see it every day.
And live it every day. But the exciting thing about Delancey Street, and I want to throw this message in quickly because drugs are horrible and we need to talk about it and understand some of the horrors. But what is exciting is what people can do to change and to redo their lives, and how wonderful someone can make a life no matter how bad they've fallen. And I think it's critical that we keep that somewhere in our minds at the same time. Delancey Street has been here in San Francisco for 20 years. We take primarily really hardcore drug addicts. Most of our people have been in and out of prison 4 times, are illiterate, unskilled, a number of other things as well. And we work as a self-help organization where there are no experts. Everyone helps each other to pull each other up and to teach each other something that I think is critical about education, if we can broaden it a little. And that is, when you talk about drug education, it's important to know you don't want your kids to know just how bad all the rest of this is, but you want to teach them alternatives that work, things that make life fun, exciting, that aren't drugs, things that get people feeling good together that aren't drugs, things that people can feel successful and proud about that aren't drugs.
Which brings up an interesting point. Why in the world do Americans need these poisons in the first place?
I think that's one of the things that should be read very carefully about this study you mentioned. I hate this study. Let me tell you, I really hate it because it leaves the impression, the reports of the study leave the impression, well, it may be better for your kid if your kid does experiment with drugs, and we know that is wrong, and that can be disastrous. But if you read deeper down in the story, what the study says is drugs are terrible for your child. Here's what you can do. Don't just depend on the school. You need to give the child, and this is your point, I think, Doctor, from the very beginning, let's look at the psychological underpinnings, the psychological causes why so many young people experiment with drugs. Average age of first use, 12 and a half, exclamation point. There's something wrong with the way we're approaching our kids. I get back, and I think this study shows it.
And
it says, hug your kid, give your kid some goals, give your kid a sense of life, a sense of joy, and explain to your child why it would be devastating.
And maybe check your own actions in regards to using drugs and
you
drinking.
You are the role model.
Now I think we're getting at what is more critical.
The Reverend Cecil Williams.
More critical.
Yeah.
You see, I think prevention, for instance, has been looked upon as a means of educating the general public about how to keep your kids, and as well as yourself and families, from engaging in drugs. I just think that most prevention programs don't work, because that's where it stops, at education, and we really ought to be talking about what's happening here and what's happening here and here. Because if we don't talk about what's happening here, then we're not getting at the problem. You know, the problem has to do with the fact I've got 750 people in a crack cocaine recovery program. And it works mainly because we talk about the conditions, the pain, we deal with the horror, we deal with the danger. We don't sit up there just talking about getting informed about what it will do to you, even though we do that.
It doesn't do any good to teach our children not to use them, and yet as we as adults go ahead and use them.
That's a major problem. The adults, many times. See, let's don't talk about what the kids are doing It's also what the adults are doing.
And we
I can
gotta
tell you
take a
about my population.
We got to take a commercial break.
Okay.
We'll be back, and we're going to unleash this audience on you, too, when we come back. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. All right. All right, Joy, you have a comment you want to make.
Yeah, first I'd like to make a comment to Cecil Williams. I think that Cecil Williams is the first person to take the war on drugs to people and make it a crusade for people instead of a war against people. And I think he deserves to be commended for that. He brought it right to the street in a good way. You know? You know? Okay. The second thing is I wrote a letter to Dan Rather when I first saw Crack Street, and I was wondering why the war on drugs was down on Crack Street and why he didn't do a story in the Hamptons and on Hillsborough, you know? When a stockbroker in my neighborhood goes down to the corner and buys a gram of cocaine, it's called a barbecue. You know? But if a black kid goes down to the corner, it's called crime in the street.
What a good point. If we don't leave here with anything else this morning, and I hope we will, let's get it straight. Crack and every other aspect of the drug problem is not a, quote, black problem.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is not a problem that's confined to the, quote, bad part of town or the inner city. Let's get that straight. The coverage is,
and
we're
the
responsible for that, and
jailing
we're to blame.
is, and that's a really
question.
key point. And the jailing
But there's let me just throw in, that's a very important point. I come from both sides, law enforcement and now working with CBS, so I think there is both sides. The trouble with the drug problem is, it is very obvious in the inner city. It happens out on the street.
Right.
So frankly, journalists that don't want to do some work go out and film the street. Whereas in the Hamptons, it takes place behind closed doors. We should never forget, and this gentleman brought up a very important point, that the vast majority of cocaine addicts in the United States are white. The vast majority of cocaine addicts are employed. The vast majority of cocaine addicts make over $25,000 a year, and the majority of them have more than 14 years education.
But
Eliza.
And they're not in jail.
Well, hold on, Joey.
And
Hold
they're
on.
not in,
if we have an administration, though, that says emphatically that what we must do is make sure that the criminal justice system takes care of the problem, we're not taking care of the problem. And that's exactly what has happened.
Eliza.
Okay, I think that one issue that I don't hear enough of when being addressed about drug abuse is the family. The dysfunctional families. You'll find the majority of drug addicts have been sexually abused, physically abused, come from alcoholic families. And if the family situation is not corrected and the pain that's inside people is not healed, there will continue to be drug abuse on and on and on. And it passed down generation to generation. It's a long chain that has to be broken.
Gary.
I'm a pharmacist, and I do some volunteer work with Lynn Lafferty in a Just Test program, and we go down to juvenile hall each Monday night and talk to kids that are in jail for mainly drug offenses. And we're talking about black versus white. This last week, out of 29 kids, 28 black and 1 white kid in jail.
Well, Cecil, your whole thing, the war on drugs is a war on blacks. That's your fear.
Right. The war on drugs is a war on blacks. I wrote an article for the New York Times, an op-ed, it was February 15th op-ed on the op-ed page. Thank God, at last. Anyway, and what I talked about was genocide, 1990s style. There's a 1990s style of genocide where the diminution of the spirit of a black people, the relationships, family relationships are completely broken. The culture, the value system, just the whole destruction of the black family is occurring right before us. And the problem is that we have not recognized, let's go back to what Dan Rather said about, for instance, we haven't had a problem like this since slavery. That is true.
And
You're right about that.
and they share many things
Let me
in common.
reiterate something Cecil said that a lot of people don't realize. I think the biggest single negative effect of crack in the United States has not yet really become well played by the press, and that is that crack has femaleized drug addiction.
Yes.
Until the advent of crack, 80% of the drug addicts in the United States were men. Now we are running between 50 and 55% women. Now, when you're talking about a matriarchal family in the inner city, you are losing, as Cecil said, the last vestiges of family in that inner city. Mother has become a junkie.
Can we also say at this point, can we also make the point here, and we talked about this last night, part of press coverage, media coverage, my own not accepted, it fails on another count, which is so many cases of child abuse these days. You read about child abuse cases, these are crack cases. Let's understand that. And part of what's destroying the family, the young woman over here said, disintegration of the family, disintegration of the family, disintegration of the neighborhoods, disintegration of our spirit, our inner spirit, is happening in ways that sometimes you don't get it when you watch the newscast or you read the paper. Crack is behind an awful lot of these child abuse cases.
Yes, Vince.
Yes, and I work for Alameda County Probation. I work with these teenagers, and we get teenagers that come to us for selling drugs, for using drugs. After they're there for a little while, you find out that's not this kid's problem. This kid has been abused, neglected. These children are raising each other, and it doesn't make any difference what nationality they are, what neighborhood they live in. These kids are out here in the world on their own. The kids emulate what they see their parents do. The bill collectors are calling, the parents are lying, the parents come home from work, he's smoking weed or he's snorting cocaine or he has a bottle of alcohol in his hand. Kids are doing what the adults are doing in this society. And they're going and get what they can regardless of what. That's why they are killing each other out in the street.
Right.
I am an ex-drug addict, and I quit doing drugs on my own without anybody helping me. My kids, my husband's a drug addict right now. He's a heroin addict. He's on the methadone. My kids are experimenting. I have AIDS, the virus from my husband. And I've cried and tried to let my kids not to do what I have done.
What do you say to them, and how are they experimenting?
They're smoking pot. They're doing cocaine like I used to do.
Where are they getting it?
Off the street from their friends in the apartments. The pot they got from me, I let them smoke it. I told them I wanted them to do it with me where they could not get hurt because somebody could give them the wrong stuff.
Mimi, what are you thinking here? What do you say to a woman?
The first thing I would say is fantastic for you that you did this by yourself initially, but I don't think you should go through all this by yourself. There's just enormous amount of support for you and your kids.
Right here with me.
So you do have a support team.
I do now, but I didn't. When I found out I had the AIDS virus, I got really upset because my husband gave it to me. And I went to them because I wanted to commit suicide.
But you're not going to because your kids can't have you do that.
Right now, my kids are going through a tough time realizing what's happening to Mom at this moment.
But how are you reacting to her saying to the kids, if you're going to smoke pot, I want you to do it here?
Our parents used to say that to us about alcohol.
If you're going to drink at home.
Have it at home so you know what the effects are.
Well, then that's why we have 60%
Carry
of the
it the next
population with drug
step,
addiction.
though. Carry it the next step and say to them, come home and do other things with me.
I think we also have to make this very clear for those who are watching. No way coming down on this lady personally. That, I think, is a terrible mistake for parents to say to kids.
It is. It sure is.
Yeah.
Well, just take it the next step. I mean, the first idea was good. I want you to do it at home. But do other things at home. Let's do some. We all need some joy at home.
But I would
Let's
have to
get some.
say, you got to go also to deal with what is hurting you, your pain, your hurt, what you are facing. And also do it with the kids. Because if you don't, nothing's going to happen. You're going to stay just like you are.
We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, let's play a clip from 48 Hours where you went into a crack bust. I'd like to know how you felt when you were in the middle of that whole thing. Mr. Rather, we'll be back after this.
Dan Rather is with us this morning, and on one of his 48-hour specials, Return to Crack Street, he actually donned civilian clothes and went in on a drug bust. Now, you didn't know what you were getting into, did you?
No, and if I had, I might not have gone.
Because as you will see, it was not a pleasant situation. In fact, very dangerous. Let's roll that clip.
Run it back, kid. Got it. Yes, sir. I ain't been right. Come down. Let's go. All the way down. Come on. Let's go. Down.
Side door, sorry. We have a search warrant for the house here, okay? You live here?
There's something other than drugs police are finding in crack houses.
Been told by Irvington, a few people here have AIDS, so be careful. Who's got AIDS? You got AIDS? Who shoots dope?
How did you feel?
Well, first of all, this was a real education for me. First thing I felt was such enormous respect for the officers of the law who did this. They do this hour in, hour out every day. Second thought, how outgunned, how outmanned they are, and what bull feathers it is that we are, quote, winning the war on drugs. All of that it simply isn't true. And all you need to do is go out once or twice on this kind of situation, and you see we are losing this war, period. It's all well and good to rhetorically talk about, well, we're doing quite well here and we're doing quite well there, but we're losing. Third thought was, I don't think everybody knows how far out the tentacles go in the drug business. It's the old story. Listen, it's their neighborhood. It's not my neighborhood. It's their kid. It's not my kid. This house is one step up from the regular crack house. This is a kind of neighborhood warehouse. They employed the young people in the neighborhood, corrupting them, getting them on drugs. It wrecked the whole neighborhood, and you could see it in an instant. Set aside the danger of AIDS. What you had are people who needed help desperately, coming to this place, trying to get a better price. And the lady at the house give them a better price. They go in the basement of the house. And you realized that among the people who come in there were people who had AIDS, infected with AIDS. When the police make this kind of raid, it increases the danger. How many fold would you say? Many fold. All of those are things that rush through my head.
We have a problem with that in one sense, Dan. How does the media, how can the media convey the story, the true story, and yet not always show that it's blacks who are being arrested?
Well, see, it's such a good point. We touched on it before. There was another example. This was in a black neighborhood. All of the people in this house that I saw were black. I had some reason to believe that a lot of people who weren't black had been in that house, but the day we were there. Now, my problem as a reporter, this in microcosm can show people what the problem is, but I don't know how to hang it. We can't just put a sign up there. Maybe we should. It says, listen, while these people are black and this house is in a black neighborhood, you should know that this is only a small sliver of the problem. Answer, I don't know what we do about this. I recognize the problem. I don't quite know what to do about it.
But the first woman we saw was white. In the intro this morning.
But that's all right. Thank you for that. You know, thank you.
But it's political.
That was another
clout.
part of the program.
Isn't it political clout, Cecil? I mean, you can't get to the white people as easily.
Well,
we have influence.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Go where they are. Oh, yeah. Yes, you can.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
But can you bust into that home in Hillsborough as easily as you bust into the home? I'm not saying it's right.
And would it be as dramatic as, you know, the key issue when you're looking to do something for television? But you see, a big thing and why we're losing the war on drugs is that, like everything, we seem to be waging the wrong war. I mean, for those people who use drugs, black, white, whatever, we are doing nothing as part of this war to teach people to rebuild correctly.
We're throwing them in jail.
We wouldn't be as upset that they're showing my family or your family or blacks or whites or Hispanics, because the issue should be we've got to teach these people, and we've got to have a government willing to give people the support, the skills that they need to make their lives work. And that's part of the war.
Let's Donald make his statement, and then we'll take a commercial break and chew it up when we come back.
I wonder how much the problem is referring to the war on drugs as a war on drugs, because you can't win a war.
Absolutely.
This is going to go on for the rest of human civilization in some way. So calling it a war means you're lost already.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll take a commercial break and come back and talk more.
When my daughters were at Harvard, one of the biggest problems was after vacations, all the drugs the kids brought back to school from their parents.
One of the things we talked about before during the break is we've got to realize that this is not just a poor problem. It is, we do not need an equal opportunity program for drugs. It affects blacks, white, Hispanics, rich, poor, and as a matter of fact, I will tell you, in my opinion, the 3 words that have killed more kids in this country when it comes to substance abuse are simply not my kid. Can't happen to me because I'm white, I'm rich, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, whatever. It happens to everybody.
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to make this, get a response from Dr. Mimi Silbert, but I want to make reference to some statistics that Bob Strudman had brought forth. He said that 5% of the population is here in America, is here in America, and 60% of the usage
60%.
here. And that sounds very horrible and debilitating. What are some solutions? Do we have any statistics that show, some of the solutions to these problems?
Some of the other countries. Are any other countries dealing better
No,
with the war on
trouble
drugs?
is the other countries are working hard to catch up to us.
Right.
As far as being drug abusers. West Germany, Spain, Italy are growing a problem.
I can tell you at Delancey Street, we used to receive requests from cities around the country about can we come help them, and we're now receiving requests from cities around the world. The drug problem is starting to hit them very hard and very heavy. The first thing, can I just say one thing because about solution? Can we roll it? You asked that question. We can't wait for the government to make the solution.
The solution is twofold. Number one, stopping those kids from using drugs at age 12 and a half before they ever start. Number one, has to be done, or we're going to continue to lose. And number two, deal with the people who already have the problem and give them the best help we can to get them off.
But there's another problem. There's a problem. There's a problem here. Here's the problem. The problem is that the news media, that television and the print media don't want to report those programs that are working.
Right.
They have to report the spectacular, the bizarre, that which is, and that's a problem. They're not going to come to you very often. They're not going to come to me very often, other folks.
But why in fact, if we do report that, do we report that because that's what the viewers want? And that's what's frustrating to a lot of people in the media.
Yeah, but aren't we doing something? The question is, some things are happening.
Someone has determined that the viewers want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also,
ask your viewers, you want to see solutions? Yeah.
Okay. I think this is, I know you want to get to the question. I think this is a very good point, and I accept that criticism is valid. I accept the responsibility of trying to change it. One of the difficulties for those of us in the media, in the press is, and you touched on it before, listen, there's always somebody to tell you, but people don't want to hear about this problem. And you can say, well, they certainly want to hear about solutions. The fact is, when you do, quote, research out there, the research tells you they don't. Now, here's where our responsibility comes in. We need to keep the news, not entertainment or infotainment, which have their places. But a news person's job is not to tell people what they necessarily say they want to hear. A news person's job is to say, listen, I'm trying to reflect reality, and the reality is it's a tremendous problem. Our leaders are running from it. I agree with everyone in here who says, listen, government can't solve this problem, but we need leaders. We need leaders who do not come from the rear, who come from the front. You people are accepting a leadership that says, I'm going to make a speech about the drug problem, and then goodbye, adios, I see you.
You're not going to have any money, but boy, we should do something about this.
We've got to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. Mark.
I'd just like to say with today's society, as health conscious as it is, we should use that to reinforce our battle against drugs by displaying the negative effects on people's health.
Yeah.
I think we should get more normal white people involved. I was addicted to drugs for years, and I go around and talk to children now. I had a 13-year-old little girl say, but you're so normal. How could it happen to you? And I know she went home and thought about it that night, because I go around and I say, look, this happened to me. Think about what's going to happen to you.
Ann.
I'd like to go back to kids for a minute, too. I think that it is essential to have, we've talked about support groups for people who are trying to get off drugs. To not get on drugs, I think it's essential to have a support group where you nurture a feeling of self-worth and ability to stretch your limits and to have fun in a safe way. I will say, as a Girl Scout troop leader, that Girl Scouting is a very good place for that to happen. Thank you.
Teaches values and morals and responsibility.
Self-esteem. Girl Scouts are very aware of this problem. We work on it all the time.
As a parent of a disabled child.
Hang on.
I'd like to agree with that. I'm the parent of a disabled child, and I'm real worried. about what he will learn from other people, and he's real at risk because he could be convinced.
He's vulnerable.
Very vulnerable. And I think that what the Girl Scout woman was saying, and values, we need to teach our kids more values. I think that that's really going to be...
That's where it's at.
Say no.
Thank you, Kelly.
Well, one of the problems I don't think is getting addressed is why we take drugs. I mean, I think there's a tremendous sense of resignation to the way things are. We don't think we can make a difference in the world.
Why do you think?
Well, because of the nature of problems and the way the mass media tends to present all these problems, but no solutions, no answers, like insights as to what actions people can take.
But, you know, Pete Hamill wrote in a magazine article here recently that maybe television has a real role in here because 7 hours a day, average American watches television. And it's an instant high, and we don't have to work for it.
And it has the same effect on us as taking drugs. We tune out.
We get kind of
we
mesmerized.
Focus, we get mesmerized.
We don't have to work.
I read Pete's piece. Pete is a superb writer. I think he's very wrong on some of the things he said in that issue. I think we should realize and never forget that one of the major reasons, if not the major reason people use drugs, is drugs feel good. If they didn't feel good, nobody would use them.
And not
for 20 years,
else feels good.
Well, that's also true. For 20 years, for 20 years, we told ourselves it was okay to do. Well, if something feels good and people tell you it's okay to do, why not do it? And now we're realizing the payback was
But look what we've done with smoking. We've made tremendous advances in our anti-smoking campaign. Why can't that work with drugs?
It can.
Because smoking felt good. Didn't we all look wonderful dragging and
Nobody
inhaling?
ever said it can't. You're absolutely right.
Yes, Mark.
Yes, one of the problems that I see is that's when the program first came on the air, how you effectively described how to use and how to administer ice. I think all of those kind of things should stay out of the media. Therefore, these kids wouldn't be getting all these great ideas how to do it. That's where it started. That's how the cocaine started.
But aren't they going to get the ideas anyhow? I mean, we're not giving them the ideas, are we?
Well, let me tell you what happens when a recovering person sees that on television. They immediately get hyped.
Right.
They're ready for it, okay? You know, it's difficult. It's just, the reality is, it gives them a hype, and they're ready to go. Yeah. So you have to be very careful about that.
And we shall return right after this.
What effect does the government, the money that the government is throwing at drugs, not spending at drugs, what effect is it having on the whole thing?
Failing miserably.
Ditto.
Miserably.
Ditto.
Miserably. That's right, it's wasting money.
Tony.
Well, Cecil Williams is having a very powerful effect on the community, throwing back the crack addicts at Hunters Point and a number of other places. I'm wondering, why aren't there more ministers? Why aren't there more people involved in this? Other than yourself, why are people scared to get involved, such as those people in the church?
Because it is a life-threatening situation. As you probably know, we marched on a public housing project and took control of it. We did it differently than anybody in America. We went with recovery. We told the pushers to stay there. We told the users to stay there. We said, we're coming for your recovery. First time it's ever been done. And we did that. And they were there, ready for us, with their bats, guns, and everything else. But we took 800 folks with us, and that's a lot of folks. Mm-hmm. And we're getting ready now. The police department, other units are calling on us. We're going to every public housing project in San Francisco. I don't know, man, why other ministers are not doing it. Right. I wish I knew. I just don't know.
Right. You know, Cecil, this is what my concern is. I think today, I think everyone in this audience, it needs to begin with you. We can talk about this until 99 years from now, but it needs to begin with each one of us taking part and doing something with somebody else's child, because it worked in the old days, it can work now.
That's right. Let me just extend it down. This lady made a very important point. As long as we depend on cops to solve the problem, it'll never get solved. That's no matter how good those guys with a badge get, and frankly, I disagree somewhat with Cecil, they're good. They're very good. But no matter how good they get, the day in America will never come that your kid can't find drugs if he wants them. So you got to deal with that.
Susan.
It seems to me that our country focuses on the future of America, which is technology and space and all of that. The future of America is our children. Why is not more attention being paid to them?
I'll tell you why. Because you aren't leveraging the power you have as an individual citizen and other citizens in this room This is what I meant before by allowing leaders to try to lead from behind. All they do is read the public opinion polls. You got a problem from the State House right up through the White House, and I do not accept myself from this. We need to demand more of our leaders. What they are looking for is the opportunity to make a speech and say adios. As long as you let them get away with that, then you're going to be standing up in front of a microphone saying, why is it somebody doesn't do something about that?
Last year we spent $10 billion. This year we're spending $10 billion on the war on drugs, and that sounds tremendous. In 1969, in 1990 dollars, we spent $305 billion in Vietnam. You let them get away with it.
I wanted to say I'm a recovering cocaine addict, crack addict, as they say these days. And you know what? When I took that first hit 3.5 years ago, it took 3.5 years to get into recovery because nobody talked about recovery. They just talked about get away, get away. I mean, I lost my wife, my child, my job, my church. I lost everything that seemed at the time important, all the emoluments that make us seem wonderful in the white world. And I went out and I did all my using in the ghetto. And I supported, when I drive up to some of these projects, people say, hi, Bob, you know, come up, we're glad to see you. Because they know that I had money, and every paycheck went that way. But when Reverend Williams did the Valencia Street thing, I work across the street from there. You can now walk down that street because they talk recovery. And help them.
I just want to read something before we go real quick. This is from Mary Jane Hatcher, one of the agents of the DEA who was killed in the line. This was his widow, and she said, look around. We middle-class suburban Americans, we casual users, we dabblers in drugs. Keep the market in drugs in an ever-increasing one. Therefore, Everett Hatcher was killed by all of us, nice people who in every other way are above reproach. All of you who hear me now and fit this description, all of you must accept the blame for the loss of this good man. We all have to accept that we have a responsibility to this country and to the children of this country and to all the people of this country to help with this war on drugs.
And two organizations, there are many more, but two organizations represented up here today, Glide Memorial Church and Delancey Street, do wonderful work. Thank you for being here. Bob Stutman. Be watching Dan Rather in the evening news at 5 o'clock from San Francisco. And I'll be right back. Stay tuned.